I'm not gone through everything I've gone through so that I can keep hiding for the rest of my life. I just was going to roll the dice, and I figured I knew my employers loved me. I mean, there's no way they would let me go over this. They did. It took about 2 months. And so that was just an awful period. We all have awful periods in our life. That was not good. And so that's when I got my golf clubs out and then went and played Papago and met people. So that's when all that was happening. Then won the club championship. And then you start to wonder, is this fair or not? And da-da-da-da-da. So I still didn't have anything to do. I had this small little house call practice in Gold Canyon. My big good jobs were gone. Lucy and I are reeling financially. We're having to sell this and do that but I wanted to still play. And I felt like, well, what level can I play at where I probably won't have any advantage? And that was at the professional level in the Cactus Tour. Now I had to ask permission from the owner of the Cactus Tour. Because even though the United States Golf Association, that's the amateur level, says it's okay for me to play in amateur tournaments, this was now a professional run tour. And so he had his own policies because he owned his little tour. When I got online, Cactus Tour, Mike Brown is the owner. The first thing you would see, there's female at birth only.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And so, hi, Mike. My name is Bobbi Lancaster, and I would love to play on your tour. Dude, this is a ladies' tour. Mike hung up. Hello, Mike, it's Bobbi Lancaster calling again. And but please don't hang up. I want you to hear my story. So I talk with this fellow who's so socially conservative. He is like, we talked for an hour. And then his final words to me were like, oh my God, I have no idea what my buddies are going to say about this one. But Bobbi, you're in. I'll let you play. And then within a week, that female at birth is gone. That's taken off.
What did you say to him? I mean, seems remarkable
I just
to me.
want to be able to play, and I'm not trying to make any social statements. I'm not going to be a problem for anybody. I want to compete. I want to try to see how good I could get at golf, because I've never had this opportunity to be able to just devote myself to hitting balls and working on my technique. But I really need this place. And you look like you run a great tour, and just out of kindness, I mean, I'm almost begging, Mike, but can you give me, otherwise I kind of don't know where I'm going to play, except I'm just going to go bang balls at Mountain Brook and Gold Canyon.
Yeah. And
so I guess he took pity. I don't know what he did. I can be persuasive.
Clearly. I think I saw an interview with him where he's not a golfer, right?
No.
He owns the tour, but he's not a golfer himself.
But his daughter is, Sarah Brown.
Oh, interesting.
She played professionally, and she was on the Golf Channel. There's that Martin, somebody who has that instructional series on the Golf Channel. And he always has a sidekick, a female sidekick, to actually hit the shots that he's talking about. Yeah. Sarah Brown was one of his first ones. Cool. So he said, what are you going to play? And I said, well, I'm looking at the schedule, and I paid my fees. And so I had a month to really start preparing for this. And the day I arrived, he was so welcoming. I'd never met him. Somewhat short fella. And he's like a guy's guy and very irreverent. Very irreverent. And as it turns out, I mean, he would be a gun-toting, Republican-voting, Bible-thumping. That's just, and I don't mean that. I'm just saying that. I don't mean it in a derogatory way. He would self-describe as that. That's who he is. He's not into LGBTQ issues.
People can surprise us, though, can't they?
They can surprise us because he just was so, Bobbi, hey, great to meet you, Bobbi. Hey, come on over here. I want you to meet somebody. And then it's like he's introducing me to this player and that player and then this player. And it's like, oh my God, and they were all so good they're all like 20, 22, 23. They were from Korea or from wherever, whatever, And I just was having a blast learning from them, watching them hit shots, seeing how they comported themselves. Some had caddies, some didn't. I just caddied for myself. And I just knew, my golf game is going to just be as good as a 62 or 3-year-old. I was 63 now, can be. And it was about the third tournament. And I wasn't an embarrassment. I mean, I was kind of middle of the pack or so in terms of scoring. He would have 60, 70, 80 players show up. I finished third once. I was top 5 a couple of times, never won one. But it was the third tournament where everything got all screwed up. I got home after the first round, and I forget which call. It was somewhere in the far West Valley, and Mike called me at home. And he says, Bobby, you've got a big problem. I said, what would that be? One of many, Mike. What would it be this time? He says, somebody, a reporter's looking for you from the Arizona Republic. Somebody has called the Republic to say that there's some queer playing on the Cactus Tour. They watched, and it's completely inappropriate. This shouldn't be allowed. It's making a laughing stock of it. And so they complained to the newspaper, and now the newspaper wanted to pick up the story. And so he says, here's her number. And
this was Paula Bovin, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Paula. Well, I used to read her columns. Mm-hmm. I got the... So the next day I showed up, and I didn't know whether a reporter would be there or not. There wasn't. But it was very nervous. And I remember talking to Lucy about this. And it was like, oh my God, now, like, she wasn't too keen on this idea of me calling up the reporter. And then I remember calling my brother in Canada, who I really trust. I've got a much younger brother, Ken. And he was like, Bobby, don't you dare touch this, because you talk too much. And you're an open book. You don't, and they're going to ask you all kinds of questions, and you are going to embarrass yourself. They're going to be looking for something salacious here. It's going to get sexual, and you're going to embarrass us too, and all that. Please don't do this. And so then I kept thinking about it. The tournament ended. I played like crap the last 2 rounds because I just was on my mind. Like, I just wanted to play golf. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, maybe it would be worthwhile for this story to get covered, my story, because the public would learn more about a transgender person and a marriage and how it survived, and recognize the fact that we're just people, and we cry and we pay taxes and we love, and I thought it just might do some good for my community, like the trans community, to just, hey, every time you seem to see a trans person depicted anywhere in a movie or something, they're always perverted or criminal, or like, here's a physician. Mm-hmm. Here's a normal person, who has dreams like kids. And so I thought I might be able to do some good with this. So I took a chance. Lucy finally said, you just listen, if that's what you want to do, fine. So I called up Paula. Hello, Paula. It was in like an afternoon. And I hear you want to cover the story. And I didn't know how all of this worked, She said, well, that would be great, Bobby. I'd like to meet with you. So I'm figuring like, well, maybe in the next week or 2. Well, the next day at noon, there's a satellite truck in our driveway with the thing up in the air. And there's Channel 12 News, because they work together with Arizona. And there's Paula, and then that night, and then the next day, and then they filmed us. And it was crazy. And that Sunday morning, paper back in 2013 was fat. Still. The
Arizona Republic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there we are, Sunday paper, front page. There's our picture, Bobby and Lucy. And then see page 3 or something. Then you go into page 3, and it was all of page 3 and page 4. And there it started. And it was so well written, and it wasn't salacious. It was uplifting. Paula
Bovin has been on my show, and because she is such a trailblazer in women's sports reporting.
She's a wonderful lady.
She is, and she was nominated for a Sports Emmy for that story.
Yes, she was.
You. And I think that the universe was smiling on you when she was assigned to that story.
Yep, because it could have gone a way different thing and gone in the toilet. Mm-hmm. But after that story, then it got picked up by all the stories across the United States. 63-year-old family physician, golfer, wants to play in the LPGA Tour. And it's like, I do? I didn't know that, but I guess, but that's what Cactus Tour players were all doing.
Yeah. That was their feeder league into the LPGA Tour.
And so the next thing you know, it's Huffington Post, and it's Good Morning America, and it's USA Today. Everybody. And then it was the Canadian magazines and this and that. People were doing stories everywhere. And boy, did I ever feel like I was doing good. My golf game was suffering. There were too many television cameras. But, and what'd you shoot? And it was really unnerving. I wasn't built for that. Or at least I had. And, but I really felt like I was doing good. And I could just see the needle of acceptance, of understanding and acceptance is going in the direction of, hey, the public is going to, we're going to be just, more accepted. Mm-hmm. And so It was a heady time. It was a really heady time. And then, of course, I went with some of my Cactus Tour buddies. We went to Mission Hills, signed up. I'm going to try to get in the LPGA Tour. Then if, well, the newspaper said I should be doing it, and my buddies in the Cactus Tour, and they accepted me like, and I had my moments. I've got a sense of humor. There was one Cactus Tour tournament where I, honest to God, because I was juggling playing this professional golf, but still seeing my house call patients and all that, and being unprepared and scattered a bit. And there was one tournament out in the far West Valley. I forget the name of it, in Goodyear. But be that as it may, I'm not playing very well. And I'd already lost a couple of golf balls. So I reached in my bag at about the 15th hole. I had no more golf balls. No, I don't know how I did that, but I had no more balls. Uh-huh. And so I had to come in. I'm done. They couldn't loan me one. We weren't playing the same brand, all that stuff. So I had to come in, not have a card. Mike Brown says, "What happened? What happened now, Bobby?" Because I said I ran out of balls. I don't have any balls, so I had to quit. Well, then we both, just because I said it that way, he laughed. Oh my God, he laughed.
That you didn't have any balls?
Yeah. And so then he told that joke over and over. And he had Bobbi Lancaster DQ, and everybody would be coming up and asking him, "What happened to Bobby the other day?" "No balls." It was so friggin' funny. But it was funny. There was another time where I used the line too. There was a par 4 on some course, and it was up in North Phoenix, Cactus Tour tournament. And it's a course where there's a wash at about the 225 mark, and all the players are laying up. I know I've got that. I could hit my driver.
I actually don't know what that means, laying up.
They were playing short of the wash.
Oh, I see. So they were going to hit it short of the wash and then go over.
But that took away any chance of getting to the green in 2.
I see. Okay.
So it was going to be a 3-shot hole for them, but I could hit a driver over that and then get on the green or around it in 2 and make a pretty easy birdie, maybe an eagle try, whatever, that kind of. Mm-hmm. So I stood there on the tee, and I've got my driver out and I've got a 5-iron out. I'm either going to lay up short of the wash or I'm going to just blast. So I'm sitting and at the last, it's the good angel and the bad, the gambling angel so I ended up hitting the 5-iron. And as I teed up the 5-iron, I made some comment to my competitors that, like, if I had any balls at all, I would have just hit the driver. And I really didn't say it with the intent of it being funny, but then they got the giggles. And then we all but that's how it went on the Cactus Tour. It was fun, lighthearted. They embraced me. I was like the old person that they looked to for health advice or life advice. Or
Bobby, at that time, did LPGA already have
They had a gender policy.
They did? And what was it at that time?
At that time, it was, if I recall, you had to have transitioned I don't think there was any demands that you have to have surgery then, but I'd had my surgery. And you had to be, I think, 1 year on female hormones. And you had to submit a testosterone level to make sure that your testosterone level was in whatever range they wanted it in.
Yeah.
And that had been established after some trans lady by the name of Lana Lawless.
Okay.
Back in about 2000, 2001. She wasn't a real good player, I don't think, but she could certainly hit the ball, from what I hear, a long way. So she was in the world long driving contests professionally. And the LPGA had some kind of ability to oversee this event, something like that. So they needed she was going to be disallowed and she was going to sue and everything so the LPGA developed a policy. But Lana Lawless really never, I don't think, did anything with the Q schools or LPGA after that. But because of her threat of a lawsuit, they established this gender policy that I was the first one for them to put through.
And how did you feel going into Q school? Did you feel the same welcoming committee as you did with the Cactus Tour?
It was yes. To make, I didn't know anybody except for Mike Brown was there.
Yeah.
Because he was there to support his players.
Yeah.
On the Cactus Tour. And a couple of my buddies were there. But if people could know what's going on behind the scenes, like I would have challenged you, I would have challenged anybody. Okay, you go do what I've been dealing with here. And what I was dealing with was there was first of all, the physical stuff. I was seeing physical therapy. My shoulder was nuts. My elbow was nuts because I'd been practicing and trying to get ready for this so much. I was putting too much strain on my body. Number two, I was in the middle of this going through their gender policy. And as we got closer and closer to Q School date, and it was a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday then. Mm-hmm. Okay? As of Sunday, I still hadn't gotten approval. Mm-hmm. Lucy and I are sitting there in Gold Canyon, and it's like, well, I guess I had the car packed. I had my suitcase packed, but I still don't know whether I'm going to be allowed in. And because they wanted another testosterone level and blah, blah, blah. And finally, a lawyer by the name of Josh, somebody, he emailed or texted right at about noon on the Sunday. And it was very terse. It was just like, you are in the field. Great. Got in the car, drove 4.5 hours to Palm Springs, check into a hotel, blah, 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 blah. And now it's Monday morning, and I've got 2 golf courses to learn, which is an impossibility. You can't play, to play practice rounds, to learn about, well, where's that hole go? What is, but the first person to answer your question about welcoming, I'm there. I feel lost. I really don't know anybody now. But this lady approaches me, and her name is Heather Daly Donofrio. She's head of the tournament, whatever. She runs all the tournaments for the LPGA. And she came up to me in the putting green, and she said, "Are you Bobbi?" "Yep." She said, "I'm Heather. We've been talking on the phone, and we've been, thank a familiar face. Hi, Heather." And she's hugging me, and she says, "We are so glad that you're here. We're happy you're in the field. Is there anything I can do to help you?" It was just like awesome. So we left, another hug. I then go over to the Palmer course, because there was going to be the Dinah course. Dinah Shore. Yeah. And it was going to be the Palmer course. So I got I think a 10 o'clock tee off on the Palmer course. So I don't have a caddy. Everybody's showing up with like caddies and big bags.
I bet.
And so I walk over with my bag and I put it down in the tee. And then my 3 playing partners for the day, for this practice round, arrive with their caddies. They're all from Korea. They've all looked like they got logos and things and caddies. And then the caddy, they're all kind of talking all fast in their language. And then one of the caddies came over to me in the tee and said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm playing a practice round today." "Well, we thought so. And the players say that you don't belong, and they're not going to play with you." Oh. And I said, "Look, I belong. I'm in the field. I can, And so then he went back to them, and then there's more, lots of talking. And then he came back again. "No, they're not." And it's like, and I didn't feel welcome. Let's put it that way at that moment in time. And I didn't push it. I thought, go ahead, and I'll just wait for the next group. And then I'll join them. Well, the next group is a foursome and they don't have room. And then the next group is a foursome. And then at that point, it's like I got all hissy. And it's like, well, hell. So I then got in a cart and I drove out in front of the Korean group. They were about the second green by now or something. Got in front of them and then just played by myself the 3rd, 4th, 5th, the 18 holes. And, it's never as rich playing by yourself because you get to talk or you get to see other shots going in what are they hitting here? What's the strategy? You're trying to figure the golf course out. And that was my day. And then that night there was a big player meeting to explain how it would all work and And then the next morning I'm teeing off on the Dinah course, which I've never seen except on television, And I remember coming to one hole where I didn't have a clue. There's a pond. It's on the back 9, and I don't have a clue what to hit. Is it a 7-iron, 8-iron? I can't make a mistake here. I mean, it's and that the angst. I just remembered it was just so unnerving to not know where the holes go or what the right strategy is. But I think I shot 77 my first round, which was a minor miracle. I was 5 over par, and then that's about where I was. I kept shooting about that kind of number. Then I played the Palmer course. At least I'd seen 15 of those holes. Yeah. And then I played the Dinah again and then the Palmer, and of course I didn't make, but I made Symetra status. And while I was there, I was eating lunch on my own up in the clubhouse. And this lady approached, I could see a number of ladies coming towards me, 20, 25 ladies, 6. You can kind of see that and then one of them broke from the pack and came over to me and she says, "Look, I wanted to introduce myself and I'm representing all of these people here right now, but you stick out like a sore thumb," I think is the way she put it. And we saw you the very first day here. This is after the third round or something. And so we all Googled your name. You've got an incredible story, and you are an incredible, brave person. And we all wanted to tell you that we think what you're doing at your age, chasing a dream like this, it's got us all thinking. You know, we all met last night, and we all wanted to come out and just kind of be around you and support you today. Because what it's done for us is it got us all talking last night about you're never too, we've kind of given up. We're not chasing any dreams. There wasn't one damn one of us at the table that's saying we're chasing something. We're trying to like accomplish something. And here you are at 63, you know? So with all these obstacles we've read about so good for you. And we're all making resolutions that we're going to like, not necessarily golf, but do something like you are, like put our brave, and that made me feel so good. So between Heather Daly, Donna Frio, and this group of women, and then all the in-between stuff was just a blur. That was Q School for me.
Bobbi, did you ever see it like that you were trying to accomplish something at a later age? Or did you realize that you were sharing that story?
No, that really hit me.
Yeah.
I thought, remember I've told you that part of my reason for accepting all the interviews I'd done was that I thought I might be a needle mover in the direction of understanding about what a trans person is and acceptance and maybe there'd be less hate and all these nice terms, you know. But that really was an affirmation to me that like I am making a difference. Yeah. And that just energized me even more, you know, that now all kinds of things started happening. I would get emails. They would find me, the president of University of Kansas down in, what's the name of the place? It'll come to me. But he said, look would you be willing to, we'll fly you out here, but would you be willing to come and talk to the student body? Sure. What's the name of that? It's a beautiful college town, ultra conservative part of the country. But he felt that we need somebody in here that's going to talk about LGBTQ issues and about acceptance and being different, the importance of diversity, etc. So they flew me in, and then they had a limo take me to a hotel, and then I went into the campus. And I just knocked it out of the park. And that's when I started to realize I can really speak. And then Stanford called me. And so they flew me into Stanford. And then I spoke, same kind of deal. And then Weill Cornell in New York and Manhattan called me in. So I flew there. And then community colleges and this and that. And then I start getting more notoriety. I had this little platform. I was like you probably didn't know all of this was going on, probably.
I didn't, but I find it very interesting that golf was really the channel.
It was the channel. Oh my God, I'm so glad. How did I ever know that golf? I always thought golf for me would be, I'd be a great player and I'd win trophies and that would be all about me. But now golf had kind of like given me this opportunity where it was all about everybody. How can I help everybody else with this little talent that I have? And I couldn't even play that well anymore. It wasn't about how good I could play. It was just golf. It would have never happened without the golf little thing. And so I started to win. People gave me awards. You know, that was heady stuff. But it just allowed me to get more notorious and have more speaking little gigs. You know? So yeah, that's how it kind of went. And really it went that way until I gave that talk at McMaster that you talked about. That's what I was busy doing all of this, not playing much golf anymore, more busy speaking, doing all my advocacy. I was on a national board, the Human Rights Campaign. They had me on their national board. I was lobbying in DC. I was in Capitol Hill a lot.
How was that experience? Because it seems like it would be thankless.
Absolutely thankless. Absolutely. You'd go in, because they, and even at the state legislature too, in Arizona, you know, they would assign me because they know, let's get Bobbi in here. Because, well, they can sense I'm competitive and they know I can talk. God bless everybody here today. But they would give me the tough assignments. And by the tough assignments, they know like the one that is so dogmatic about like, this is just wrong. And they just they weren't going to listen. I could talk till I'm blue in the face about like, well, you know, being trans is like it's part of the diversity of being a human being. Everybody's a little bit different. And I could, I'm not going to do that here today, but there's a whole lecture I've given about what is the biology behind why is a person trans.
Well, and you're certainly in a unique position to talk about that as a physician.
Oh, I can get into some genetics with you or hormonal things and what happens to brain development. And then this is why because there is a gender identity area in the brain near the hypothalamus. It can be masculinized or it can't be. And if it's not, well, then you identify as a female. But the rest of me was masculinized. And so there's this discordance. They're not listening to anything that I wanted to say. It's just their aides would be there. Sometimes you'd meet with the senator or with the representative and you just feel like you're just banging your head. There's a lot of things, though, in life that you feel sometimes like you don't really know. You just keep doing it. I liken it to throwing something in a pond and the ripples go out. And you wonder, well, is that having any effect? Is that having any effect? There was an article written about me called the butterfly effect. There's Bobbi flapping her wings. Are you making any difference? The butterfly effect. And then, but then every so often you get somebody that's, I heard you speak, or I heard you say that, and I got thinking about it, and you realize that you changed something for somebody that you had no idea.
Who has done that for you?
Well, patients over the years, they'll come back and tell me.
But as far as you certainly are influencing a lot of other people's lives, and you are giving this incredible example for people and how they might live their lives. But who has been your icon? Who do you look up to, and who has guided you on this?
Elie Wiesel.
I don't know who that is.
Elie, Holocaust survivor.
Oh, sure.
He's passed away now. Turned human rights activist. Lived in New York. There's the Wiesel Institute. Incredible guy where he pushes back. He's the one where you always talk about, if you don't speak up and you say something that isn't right, then you're part of the problem, and you're part of the reason why there's discrimination going on or whatever else. You can't be complacent. You have to speak out. You have to. And so he was somebody that had an impact on me. The more I learned about his story, I haven't thought about him for a while. He passed away. In fact, I wanted to try to meet him when I went to speak in Weill Cornell. I was all planning and I just hope I can meet with him, to just tell him, I've taken to heart what you try to encourage people to do, which is if you feel passionate about something or there's a wrong that you see, there's something that you want to try to change, then get off your butt, speak up and do something about it. And so, but he passed. He passed probably a month before I got there. I probably would have never been able to see him anyhow because he's famous.
I don't know. My money's on you.
I probably could have wormed my way into his offices or his apartment building or wherever he lived there.
For those of us who do want to be strong allies for people like you and for the trans community, what do you recommend?
Supporting that individual, telling them you love them, just like you would a kid. Maybe I don't agree with everything, but still, I'm there for you. So that's an important thing to do. Speaking out if you're asked to. Sometimes it would be a brave thing to do. But sometimes there's that opportunity where I'm going to get up at the mic right now, or I'm going to write that letter, or I'm going to show up and march in the Pride Parade with Bobbi, just as a show of solidarity. It's things like that.
Name the time and place. I'm there.
Yeah. Except I don't want to go there right now because it's just that pendulum that I felt was swinging in the direction of acceptance and embracing, somebody that's different and all that. It just seems like it's just slid, way back in the other direction now. It's like all that work I felt I was doing, and probably lots of others. I'm just a little person, you remember. I'm just a small little thing, but still I was doing my best, but I feel like it's just awful what's now happened.
I agree.
Which can I expand on that a little bit about, remember the fairness thing that we were talking about?
Sure, yeah.
And my doubts about whether it was fair for me to compete. And then I went professional so that I really had no advantage. I had no advantage over a 23-year-old really good player. But as time has gone on, there's more and more science about that transgender woman like me, where what happens when you have your surgery and you remove testicles and you go on estrogens and you lower testosterone levels. What happens to performance? Is it mitigated? We know that an elite male athlete can perform better at anything than an elite female. It's just the way of nature. Name a sport, name a swimming time, name a marathon time, name a weightlifting record, there isn't one record where there's a world record that's held by the woman. Mm-hmm. They're all held by guys because that damn it's not damn, it's just nature. That thing called testosterone, once it really surges in puberty, it gives an elite male athlete, probably anywhere, depending on what study you're looking at, which physiologist has measured, 10, 15% to maybe 30, 35% advantage over an elite female. Mm-hmm. It's just, so what are we going to do to allow Bobbi to compete with the female? Well, we're going to mitigate with estrogens and surgery, and that should do it, right? It doesn't do it. As we're finding out at the elite level, there's still what they call legacy effects that are at play. What do we mean by legacy effects? It doesn't matter how much estrogen or what surgeries I've had, I'm still 6'1". Like taking estrogens isn't going to make me 5'7". I've still got, well, not anymore, but a muscle mass, a larger cardiac output, larger lungs, all because of testosterone, mm-hmm. Larger skeletal structure, better levers, whatever. That can't be mitigated away. And so that's where, some of the studies indicate that there's probably still a 5, 6, 7, 8% advantage. So you've taken Bobbi's or Leah Thomas's or name a sport, and you've tried to kind of make it an even playing field. They've still got an advantage, this legacy advantage.
Do you worry, though, in speaking about this, that it will be taken out of context and used against especially young trans kids?
It's almost the opposite. I feel like the people like Bobbi's or the Leahs, if I felt that there was something unfair and I was winning too much, knowing my conscience, the way I live my life, I would have backed out of there. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have felt right about it. Mm-hmm. But some of the other trans women athletes, they seem to have no qualms about winning. No, if like the Penn State swimmer or whatever else, they're just out there. They're going to and so there's been so much outcry about them winning. Mm-hmm. And when you're winning at that level, when you're winning NCAA events or world championships or whatever else, you're taking away a position for a cisgender woman. She should have been on the podium, not that trans woman with her legacy advantage because she went through a male puberty.
So do you think those people should just not be allowed to compete at all?
They shouldn't be allowed to compete. They shouldn't be allowed to compete because of that legacy advantage. There's not many of them. How many? CC Telford, a hurdler or a hurdler from Jamaica. There was a weightlifter from New Zealand, Lauren Hubbard, in the last Olympics. Mm-hmm. There's Leah Thomas in the pool. There's another Canadian swimmer. There's a golfer. Every sport seems to have one. There's not many. But those few have caused a firestorm of angry parents, of, cisgender women who it's like, this is not fair.
Can we talk about the Golf Week article that just came out?
Sure.
And just tell the story of what happened with the Haley Davidson. And was it a playoff hole that they were playing?
I would consider Haley and I friends.
Yeah.
In fact, I have supported her, in her quest. She is a trans woman. Mm-hmm. She's younger. I think she might be in her late 20s or something.
Mm-hmm. She's 30.
30. She was on the men's golf team, I think, level 2, maybe division 2, had a scholarship. She could play. Mm-hmm. She can still play.
Yeah.
So she's like me, except she's a younger version, where she's transitioned, and that's mitigated some of her distance and all that stuff. But there's still legacy effects, I feel, that she has. Once again, I've defined kind of.
Yeah.
So she's now playing on a tour in Florida, and I can't remember the name of it.
Well, I'm not sure if you say it Nick's Tour or you say it NXXT Tour.
I don't know.
I don't know either. So
but it's something new. They did have the Cactus Tour, and then they had some kind of Florida Tour. Those are the two tours that were feeding Symetra. I don't think it's Symetra either. I think it's Epson Tour.
Yeah.
But those two, and then that tour went away in Florida, but then this NXXT or something has started up, mm-hmm. and they've got maybe 12 to 15 players playing. It's not big fields. It's not like as established as Mike Brown's mm-hmm. Cactus Tour. But she's now playing in that tour as a professional. She has hopes of being on the LPGA Tour. And there's been some LPGA players like Paula Kramer, who's trying to get her game back in a return bid to the LPGA Tour. So Paula Kramer played in one of these events, and Haley beat her, amongst the others. She won. Yeah. I think she's won 3 times now in that tour. Most recently was maybe a month ago. She won. Everybody's frightened probably to talk out about this issue because, well, I don't know. Maybe you would have been, did you ever feel like, but this isn't fair. Bobbi shouldn't be playing with us. Did you ever have that feeling? Or did you hear that
never
kind of thing?
Felt that way personally when I was playing with you.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a hot topic for sure.
Yeah.
And
but maybe because of, it's just a hard thing to challenge me on.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
Especially if I'm nice.
Yeah.
And I can be nice.
Yeah.
You know, so nobody challenges and nobody wants to speak about this. And so it's all talked about behind the scenes. And it is talked about with Haley Davidson behind the scenes too. But nobody is like putting it out there that is this really fair or not?
Well, what I found very interesting about this story and what happened at the last event was that it appeared in that last hole that she had turned it on and she had hit a drive that was 50, 60 yards past her competitor. And so I found it interesting that the story kind of skewed it in a way that it was like she's holding back to not prove that she has as much power as she does. But in that competitive level, she let loose on that last.
I read that too. Knowing Haley, I don't know that she would be intentionally trying to hold back so that she will fit in and nobody will really worry about her.
Yeah.
But then when the trophy's within reach, I'm going for it now. And then you'll see, and then she let her true self out.
Exactly.
I don't know that she's that conniving or, but I don't know. I can't be in her head. I don't know. You know, I never held back, but on the other hand, I tried charming everybody so that they'd love me. And then I'd be accepted. Maybe her way of being accepted is to hold back a bit.
Yeah.
So that she kind of fits in and nobody's going to make a stink and all that. And then pow, she wins because she hits the par 5 and 2 or something.
Yeah.
So wins the thing. So there's all this, nobody's talking about it behind the scenes. And maybe golf isn't, and that little tour isn't like as big a deal as a Penn State swimmer winning. And then in getting all those NCAA players or swimmers upset and their parents upset and politicians upset. So this is where, to getting back to your point, you have like half a dozen or a dozen of these trans women athletes winning or near winning and maybe keeping somebody's daughter off the podium. It's not just the podium. These are like potentials for scholarships or for sponsorships or maybe a professional career or like, you know, your life can change when you're on the podium somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, but imagine if Bobbi, if I could play that well and I managed to snag the last tour card available at Q School, you know, well, how would you feel if you're number 21 and I got the 20th spot and your parents and and it's, you know, I feel the people that have paid the price, the athletes, they are getting some heat now. The Leah Thomases, the swimmer, there's heat there.
Yeah.
But because by pursuing their dreams and pushing and they're out there winning or on the podium or something, the public has been so angered by this that it's backed up into like the political arena. And now in many states, there's even laws that have been enacted.
It's awful.
So that now it's against the law for a physician to provide care for a trans 8-year-old or 10-year-old. What should have just been between the parents and their kid and their physicians. No, now it's like if that physician gives any care, it's a felony. If somebody reports, or you can't play. Remember, we started out by talking about the value of sports. Good God. I mean, sports, especially at a young age, at any age, but at a young age, friendships, or how to goof up and be supported, or how to support others, or how to work things out, or there's all kinds of things that sports provides that almost nothing else can. So, but no, there's many states now you can't, if you're a trans little girl, no, you can't play with the boys, or the girls, because it's just against, like they're making this against the law in public education. Or if you want to go to school, and now it's, well, the parents tell you, look at where Bobbi's receiving a lot of counseling. and too young for hormones or all that. But Bobbi goes by Bob now or whatever. But no, can't start calling it by the non-biological name. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's gotten so ugly for the young people. All because there's 6 or 7 or 8 individuals at this level that want to, like Leah Thomas or, well, maybe Haley Davidson or at one time Bobbi Lancaster were. I thought it would be leading to harmony and a better understanding, but it seems to have just led to pushback and more hate. Mm-hmm. And now the kids are paying the price.
So to be clear, in your view, if someone were to transition prior to puberty, that would level the playing field enough to let them compete?
Seems to be the consensus that's being developed. Remember, I'm not the decider. I'm just putting it out there. But
your opinion matters a lot.
I'm reading a lot of science. Mm-hmm. I'm reading about, this wasn't known 10 years ago or 8 or 10, but it's known now about these legacy advantages. Mm-hmm. But it's convincing enough for the world, what do they call it? World Aquatics. It used to be FINA, the governing body for swimming at the world championship level and all that stuff. They have now changed their policy so that it's, if you didn't transition before 12, in other words, well, you can't maybe surgically transition because who is going to have surgery before the age of consent? I don't know any surgeons I know of that are going to start doing things, permanent things.
But hormone blockers.
And that sort of thing. If you haven't done that before the age of 12, you are not allowed to swim in any later on, so if you're an 18-year-old phenomenal swimmer, you're a trans woman, you're not swimming because you didn't transition before 12. Mm-hmm. And the same goes now for, what is the other organization? The World Athletic Council. Mm-hmm. They run track and field at the worldwide level. They've also adopted this policy. And I'll tell you right now, I'll bet you that the LPGA, wink, wink, I might even know something, but the LPGA, the USGA, you name a sport, they're all re-looking at their gender, policies. And they're probably all going to start to tweak them, just like these other world organizations have already done. So you're not going to see Leah Thomas swim in the national or the world championships or in Olympics, or a sprinter, a trans sprinter. Nope. And I think that that's fair. I think in the interests of creating this mythical perfect playing field, which is that'll never happen.
Yeah, it's a myth.
Bobbi, that age of 12, I'm curious on your experience. Mm-hmm. Would you, as an 8-year-old boy, been able to confidently communicate with your parents that you were ready to go on hormones?
Nope.
It seems like
I don't know. All I would have been, if it was a different time and I had different parents and more was known because of Bobbi Lancaster, but it was just more known.
Yeah.
Transgender isn't like this mysterious, like 15 years ago, it'd be like, huh? What's that?
So kids are able to make this decision now?
So kids, I think all the kid can do is the parents are probably noticing that, gosh, young Bob just is into her sister's dresses every opportunity.
Yeah.
Or likes to play in stereotypical kind of female games or little girl games. So the parents would notice this. And then I would want to wear that to school or something. I'd want to wear, and then they would say, well, no, you can't do that. And then I'd cry and I'd carry on and they'd see this unhappy little person, little Bob. So that's what would be going on in these households. It wouldn't be like Bob is 8 saying, I'd like some hormones.
Yeah.
It would be like, they just see that I seem to be really low, quiet, school suffering, whatever. But then I come alive when I'm allowed just to dress in the dresses.
Yeah.
And so then they would go to a doctor to say, this is kind of fun or amusing initially. It's kind of like a bit weird. But we know that this thing, do you think our kid could be trans? And then you'd be off to some expert's office, at Phoenix. Dr. Chilani, Phoenix Children's Hospital. You would meet with a Dr. Chilani. And then he would do all this psychological testing and this and that and that. And then he would say, yeah, I think there's a good chance that your kid is. We don't have a blood test to prove it. We don't have a brain scan, but just this behavior, it's so insistent. It's so persistent. It's so consistent. I think your kid maybe is trans. And my recommendation is that maybe around the house, this is going to be just fine. You're not doing any, and maybe they'll grow out of it. Not many do. That's a rarity.
Is giving hormones to a young child Does it do damage in any way if they were to go off of it?
You wouldn't start estrogens or anything like that age.
Okay.
But once you got to be 12 or so, 13, 12, and you started to get into like puberty, and they have different stages, a physician can look and say, oh, you're Tanner stage 2, where the little breast buds are starting or whatever, little hair, pubic hair. Or then you'd say, well, here we are now. We've been dealing with this since you've been seeing me since we were 7 and 8 and 9, you and your kid, and they still identify as a female. We're reaching a bit of a crisis here. Well, not a crisis, but this is a
pivotal.
If we don't, here's something we're going to offer. If we offer puberty blockers to hold things up so that they won't go through puberty, then what that will mean is, well, it could mean if they end up being an elite athlete someday, that they'll be able to play in national championships or whatever,
Yeah.
But that's not but we could hold things up so that your child will then grow up. The child's now 12, will now grow up and fit in much, much better in society. Will not be a 6'1" with size. I look at your nice golf shoes you've got and dresses and outfits and can't fit in the damn one of them, but that's because I went through puberty. But so I stick out like a sore thumb and my voice is deepened and I can't do anything about it because my voice box is masculinized and I got a beard this is being seen by millions of people, isn't it? But I have to shave every morning still.
Yeah.
So we can have a situation where your little Bob now, who identifies as Bobby, 12 years old, will hold up puberty. And then if we're really still certain, if what we think is going on here and they're 16 or so, well, then maybe it's time to get rid of the blockers, go on some female hormones. And maybe at 18, Bobby has surgery.
Okay.
And then now Bobby won't be 6'1" though. It'll probably be 5'7" and not have to shave and and just fit in. Just fit in and go live your life and not stick out. Because fitting in is like, it's hard to, I don't care anymore. I think that's part of the nice thing about I just don't care.
Yeah.
But I cared a lot that I stuck out. People would stare at me.
Is this becoming more normal, you think? Are we still far away from normal? Especially with the adolescents and the kid.
I think that there's a fear now that have you done with those darn blockers? Have you really buggered things up here? Well, I can't give you that answer.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done this and we can't, and these individuals now aren't 50 to know that oh my God, look what the blockers did, because you were on blockers when you were 12 and 13 and 14. Now you've got some kind of weird cancer or some goofy thing that probably we think was caused by this 40 years. We don't know.
Yeah.
All we do know is that it doesn't seem to do any terrible stuff. It doesn't make you infertile until you do something really radical, like you take out testicles or something.
Yeah.
But it's got the potential to bugger up bone health. So that you've got to be careful there, but there's ways to mitigate that, calcium and vitamin D.
And I do want to add, because we have 3 different friends who have transgender children, and it was very, very obvious, very, very young. I mean, there was these are all wonderful, accepting, loving parents who were very open. And
My God.
I think that really, really helped. But the suicide rates among transgender kids and transgender people is so incredibly high that the risks that you're talking about with hormone blockers feel almost irrelevant to these families that I've talked to.
Well, yeah, I know everybody is concerned though about it. Rightfully so. What could we be doing to harm? But by doing nothing to a kid like this, you're condemning them to looking like me, because they're going to go through their puberty, and that's an extremely unhappy time. And I can vouch for it, because now it's all these irreversible things are happening to me. My voice is changing. When my voice started to go down, it was like, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah. And I'm shaving and all this hair and my height, and I'm sticking out. And so, there is, I think young people, it's a difficult time to be a young person right now. Not just around trans issues, about social media and so many challenges. So I think there's a lot more unhappiness and depression amongst young people, and the suicide rate is not very good and all that. But you want to look at a really high risk group. That trans group is what you're talking. Yep, that's still a really high risk time. And you offer them treatment or something where The happiness level is just, it's like me up in that second floor of that farmhouse, dressing in my mom's clothing, probably from when it's like, oh my God, this is just, I don't know I could be any happier, right? Or being at Crystal's house dressing, except when she ate my turtle leg.
Crystal. And we're back to Crystal.
Wherever you are.
Crystal, wherever you are.
Well, we have to wrap things up. So I want to know.
Has this been helpful at all?
Oh my God, tremendously.
I'm
so grateful that you
please,
came on.
I hope we're Haley. Well, Crystal, wherever you are, I want a turtle. But Haley Davidson, wherever you are, it's not like I'm hating on you. It's just, and I'm not hating on that swimmer. And it's just, because it's not my nature to want to rain in people's parade or hate people or whatever. But come on, we have to get real here about the fact that science is now telling us what kind of, if you really listen to your heart, you knew anyhow. I've got an advantage still.
Yeah.
I've got an advantage over many people my age on a golf course still.
Yeah.
Because of those legacy advantages. Come on, it's not for us. Go and enjoy the sport in some other way. At least you're happy. You transitioned. You're not suicidal, living your authentic life. But you might have to give up something like your professional dreams, but you're happy. But don't go push, 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 so that the backlash ends up screwing up a whole bunch of young kids who are now, you know where I'm going with that.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Where's your relationship with golf now?
It's probably, what's my relationship with golf? I like going to the range sometimes and helping people at the range. Like just impromptu little teaching.
Yeah.
I like that because I know a lot about the game. I use golf as an analogy in many life situations with my patients or whatever. I love the memories of what golf meant to me. And what else is there about golf that still, I don't have the notoriety up anymore. Although when I do go back to Hamilton, I'm still, that's Bobbi. She was a great golfer. That's good. I love being able to think back about how good I was, and I really wasn't. But it just gets better and better.
Oh my God. I'm going to have to stop you there because it wasn't that long ago that we were playing together. I mean, we're talking a year and a half ago.
Oh, no, but I'm talking about when I was 20.
I understand that, but you were still an amazing golfer. I mean, we're talking still a scratch golfer and someone that could hit the ball so well. And I don't remember your short game of being that bad. So that must have been something you struggled with, but I didn't notice because I've played with you consistently for 2-3 years, and it was always a pleasure. Yeah. It was always a fun day. I remember learning a lot of when we played was that team. So I just remember the friendly competitiveness.
It was competitive, but it was friendly and respectful.
Yeah.
And that's what I would hope that people can be to people who are different, not just trans, but people who are different. I hope that people just embrace diversity and just, be more accepting. Yeah. But golf, well, now I'm gardening and I'm leading tours or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite a legacy. Quite a legacy.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me today.
It was our pleasure. And all the links to get in touch with Bobbi and to touch base with you are in the show notes.
Sure. And if I could make a plug, am I allowed to make a plug?
Please do.
We talked about that book that I wrote called Putting Down Roots. But there is several other books. The first one I wrote is called The Red Light Runner, and that's as far as I'll go. Well, you could read my medical book too. It's called The Doctor Is In. But The Red Light Runner, I think, would be an important book for anybody who wants to explore, well, what is this transgender issue all about? What's it like to be trans? What's it like to come out to your family, et cetera, et cetera? And then it's a complicated book because it is a memoir, but then it gets into advocacy. Even though your life maybe gets down in the dumper sometimes after you lose jobs and whatever, you never know what's around the corner. Look what happened to me with the media and everything. And so then it gets into like advocacy and helping others and making a difference. And Elie Wiesel is in that book. There's a little section in him and how he changed me or motivated me. So that's my plug for the book.
And where is it available? Is it available everywhere?
Oh gosh, I think it's available on Amazon. Just Bobbi Lancaster, get on Amazon. And then at the end of my books, there's always my email. And I have gotten, you asked, how do you know you're making any difference? I've got a box at home, about that big, cardboard box, full of letters that's like, Dear Bobbi, I read your story on blah, blah, blah. And I want you to know something. My son approached me about 4 years ago, and he said that he's always felt like a female. And I told him that we're not going to have that kind of talk in this household. And so he persisted, and my husband and I talked about this whole nonsense. And we ended up saying that if you're going to continue like this, you're not welcome in this home, because we don't have this kind of thing go on in our home. So he was, like a lot of trans or LGBTQ kids, kicked out of his home. So he goes to live with relatives and blah, blah. And so that's where things were at, Bobbi, until I read this article about you. And then I started to get a different understanding about what it means to be trans, and that it's not his fault and it's all that. And then I realized how awful, and we've not handled this well at all. So I'm now going to start to cry again, because then the end of the letter is that I found my son, now a girl, and called, and we've met. All because I read this article about you, and everything's going to be okay now. Signed, blah, blah, blah. Now, you get a letter like that, multiply that by a whole bunch that are in here. Anytime I need my ego pumped up or I'm at a low point, I can just go and grab a letter and say, yep, I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Doing good. Thank you, Bobbi.
Maybe we can end it on that note. Tissue time.
Thank you, Sasha.
Of course. Is it okay if I do my little wrap up?
Yes, please.
So thank you, Bobbi, for taking the time today. Sports fam, thank you so much for listening, subscribing, sharing with your friends. You can find us online at sportswillsaveusall.com and on Instagram at sportswillsaveusall, where I have posted some great photos of Bobbi on and off the golf course. And remember, we are always looking for great sports stories. So if you know someone we should talk to, send us an email at sportswillsaveusall@gmail.com. That is it for us today. This has been really, really incredible. I will see you next week with more stories about how sports will save us all.